Shall we begin?
Welcome to the Happy MonsterCast. I'm your host, Scott Marchand Davis of Happy Monster Press.
Let's begin now.
This week on the Happy MonsterCast, the Legion must sabotage the British fleet to save the New England colonies. Previously on the Happy MonsterCast, the Continental Army has formed the Legion of Liberty, a unit of superhumans fighting for freedom from the British Crown. Elijah Allen, Master of Mind Control. Artemis Crow, Invisible Assassin. Kadenoit, the Wampanoag Swamp Monster. Lara Washington, Super Soldier. And Nubbins McGregor, New Recruit and Greycoat Deserter. The colonial loss at the Battle of Newport led to a British attempt to sever Boston from the rest of the colonies by marching north. Now the Legion must undertake a daring mission of sabotage to block their advance. All right, let's recap. So last week you fought the Battle of Newport when the British attempted to break out from their siege, and they were way more successful than anyone expected. So successful that they not only broke out of the siege, they rather devastated the colonial forces. And General Sullivan himself was wounded and had to hand over command to General Nathaniel Greene. And so the British, the British, emboldened by this victory, are pushing upriver towards Providence of cutting Boston off from the rest of the colonies. So General Greene is setting up a defense at Pawtucket here to try to hold the British back. He calls you into his command tent and says, first of all, Sergeant Allen, I am promoting you to lieutenant, and the rest of you to the rank of sergeant, with the exception of your new companion here, the Greycoat Deserter. He'll need to prove himself on the field of battle before we promote him.
Thank you, sir.
So, Lieutenant, the British have moved much of their fleet upriver and anchored in between Warwick and Providence. We need to strike at that fleet in order to prevent the British from maintaining command of the river and, by extension, of the whole estuary. Unfortunately, the British fleet is a substantial force, too strong for us to attack directly. Our best option, therefore, is some form of sabotage. I'm tasking your squad with engaging with the British fleet and doing what you can to damage one or more of their ships.
This seems like our specialty.
Sounds fairly straightforward.
Very well.
Do we have a sense of how many ships strong they are?
We believe that there are 8 ships of the line, one of 98 guns and the rest 74s.
And tenders?
Not to our knowledge. They seem to have left their scouts to hold Newport itself. Frigates and brigs. It seems that they want the artillery strength of the heavy ships.
Interesting. Okay.
Are you familiar with this class of British this class of British vessel?
Is anybody in our group?
Not I.
Nubbins probably would be, so he'll give a nod. But since the rest of you are shaking his head, he said, typically these ships have a crew on the order of Artemis knows this too, but he's not speaking up. Typically, these ships have a crew on the order of 600 men, and they generally have either a They generally have a port and starboard watch, so you can expect no less than 200 men to be on watch at any given time.
That's a lot of men.
Yeah.
Indeed, this is why we feel direct action is not a wise option, especially given the weight of metal that these ships can throw in their broadsides. The ships will likely be armed with 32-pounder and 24-pounder cannon.
Is there any more information about our targets?
That's what we have at this point. So reconnaissance will likely be necessary. I can send a small detachment of engineers to accompany you and stay back from the action to provide any supplies that might be helpful in the sabotage effort.
Wonderful. Perhaps our reconnaissance mission should be Mr. Crow as well. Going in there and checking things out.
Happy to serve.
We also have some information that the Greycoat forces that accompany the British force are encamped at Providence, so you will not likely have to deal with superhuman opposition in this mission.
Great. We'll try to get in and out without making too much noise.
As far as we know.
Do you have any other questions, or are there any other supplies that we can provide?
We're probably going to need some supplies of gunpowder at some point, depending on what kind of sabotage we're going to try to inflict on these guys, on these ships.
Yeah. I was wondering that. Are we aiming to destroy them completely or disable? Is it?
Anything you can do to damage the ships will be useful, even if you can only damage one. Anything to reduce their mobility or their effectiveness in combat. With that said, certainly by some means you can fire the powder magazine. That will be a devastating explosion that likely will take down both the ship that's immediately affected and any ones nearby. We'll send the engineers with a wagon with 10 20-pound kegs of gunpowder, as well as supplies of fuse and other ancillary equipment.
Right.
Okay. Yep. Seems pretty straightforward.
All right. So reconnaissance first.
All right.
You should scout ahead, see what we're looking at.
All right. So you set out downriver, moving carefully, circling wide around the British forces in Providence. And you come to a point on the river where you can see the fleet, and the ships are swaying at anchor. Their sails are furled, but their cannons are run out to discourage any American or French advances. Boarding nets guard the upper decks, and sailors busily tend to the rigging and scrub the decks. The harsh cry of gulls meets the shrill whistle of the bosun pipes as the watch changes aboard the 8 massive warships. As you're watching, you also see periodically small boats rowing out into the up to the ships, and it looks like there's some sort of commerce going back and forth. Common knowledge might tell you more about what's going on there.
Okay, give it a shot. Oh, wait, is this?
Should we all just give it a roll?
Yeah, is this what's going on the deck? Okay.
Okay, so Clara, you've heard of this before. It's pretty common for local merchants, both above board and otherwise, to row longboats out to the ships and sell fresh food, liquor, quote, services, unquote, to the sailors.
Huh. Whatever do you mean? Okay.
Carpentry.
Carpentry, yeah, that's the ticket.
Right.
So, with a spyglass at a distance, we observe the ships. So you said 8 ships of the line 32 and 24 pounders.
Yep. One of 98 guns and 3 decks. The others are 74 guns and 2 decks.
Well,
so just for perspective, the freeboard, which is the distance from the water to the first deck that's open to the air, on the 3-decker is about 45 feet, and on the 2-deckers it's about 34 feet. So there's a substantial distance between where you get onto the deck and the water line.
Scott, how far does my common knowledge extend about these ships?
I mean, none of you are sailors, but Nubbins has some information because as a Greycoat, he's been deployed on ships like these in the past. So if you have questions
I know
about
how
it,
to sail. Would that help me at all?
You know the basic mechanics, but you don't really know the layout of a British ship of the line. But Nubbins does.
Okay, I didn't think so. But I thought I'd
Nubbins. Yeah, Nubbins, can you tell us about? I mean, one of the things that we might be thinking about here is to blow the powder magazine. What's the likelihood that we'll be able to, like, say, sneak up on board, drill a hole through the hull, and pile in some bombs, like powder and fuses?
The magazine's always below the waterline. Keeps it from being struck by a red-hot shot in siege situations.
And how thick is the hull?
That's a good 8 inches of solid oak with copper laid over for speed.
If only Victoria was here.
Yeah.
When you were on these ships, how often did you see vermin?
Many is the day that I shared a roasted rat haunch with the midshipman's mess.
Ugh.
Well, when it's a roasted rat haunch or weevily biscuit, the rat haunch looks much more appetizing.
Ugh. Sorry. That's just yuck.
Yeah.
But period accurate.
Indeed.
Pet Noah nods knowingly. He's been in the woods.
Oh, good Lord.
Rat's great. Tastes just like squirrel.
Your fun trick with wildlife. How does that work?
I can touch someone and shift them into another shape.
Now, I don't remember when he did. Not that I wear a lot to begin with. When he did that to me last time, did the clothing come too?
When you shifted, it shifted the clothing into so you were clothed and returned to being clothed when you shifted back with your equipment. You obviously aren't carrying around a musket or whatever weren't carrying around a musket as a mouse, but you totally.
No, if somebody had a tinderbox or a wick and a flint and steel in their pocket.
Yeah, that would work.
Even carrying a small keg of gunpowder, maybe.
Yeah.
The keg of gunpowder is a little too much.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Not a keg, the kind of flask that you would use to load a breech loader.
Like a powder skin. Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
And beyond that, it's worthy of note that a typical ship of the line would have literally tons of powder in its magazine.
Okay.
To use its own powder against it.
Yeah.
That makes
Not
sense.
that I like to repeat a trick.
Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
If it works, yeah.
So lay out your plan for me here.
Well, okay. So, how many of us could you turn at a time? I think we did 2 last time.
On a good day, I can change the lot of you, just not myself.
Well, that might not be a bad thing because I think we want to keep you on the shore watching a Revolutionary Time pocket watch. Yes, no?
Yes, definitely
Yeah.
pocket watch.
Okay. Because we could most definitely synchronize.
Yeah, Artemis doesn't need to be invisible either. I mean, he doesn't need to be turned into a mouse. He can go invisible. So that's one
right.
less person.
And I don't need to worry about carrying powder. But we could,
That's true.
we could perform a two-pronged attack.
Yep.
Okay, go on.
With one
And in
team
fact-
hitting one boat, one team hitting the other.
There's a lot of ground to cover.
Well, with,
Although if we pull this off correctly, we could do one a day. Because they're not going to know what hit them.
well, I think if we're going to do this, we find one of the ships that's like sort of in the middle of the flotilla or the arrangement, and if we cork off two of them right in the middle, those might be enough to cork off the others. We might get a chain reaction.
So how many people are we talking about shifting here?
Maybe 4. So I'll be invisible with one team, and say 2, quote unquote mice or rats on board the ship.
Rats would be far more common.
Right.
Okay, to shift all of you, that's going to be let's see, a -5 on his skill. So he's
not Artemis, right?
Mm.
Or are you gonna?
No, not me.
Yeah, so
yeah,
4. Right?
So it'd only be 3 then, because he can't shift himself either. So it'd be Elijah, Pet Noah, and Clara. So 3 would be -4 on that, but he's got a D12, so and he can concentrate, which takes 2 points off. So it's D12 -2. He's got a decent chance of pulling that off.
All right.
Okay. So
All right.
Okay, so are we all going on the same ship, or are we all choosing ships kind of in the middle, and we're all gonna take some flint and tinder and whatever and just do what we can?
I think we should do 2 ships.
Obviously, Pet Noah can just
Yeah.
blow up, so that he's covered there. But for the rest of you, you need to figure out how you're going to not blow yourselves up in the process here, because if you just strike a spark in that magazine, it will be very successful in destroying the ship, essentially instantly, and you with it.
Would a bolt do it?
Not a psychic one.
The ship has a headache.
Mm.
It's going
Is
to
there
need
any
to be
way
a
to
time
make some kind of a
it's going to
wick?
need to give you enough time to jump into the water.
There you could lay a fuse. There's a possibility someone
Right.
might spot it though, but it is possible. I mean, you have slow match, which is basically a fuse.
Okay,
And
wait a minute.
It burns at the rate of 1 inch every 10 seconds.
We blew something up a while ago. What did
We do that a
More
good
specific.
bit.
You did.
Yeah.
We used timers. We blew something up with, I believe we used the slow match.
Yeah, it was
And I
coiled.
believe we encapsulated it in something.
Yes, in a keg.
Oh, that was a big keg, wasn't it?
Yes.
Well, but in that instance, we had to have a bunch of gunpowder in the keg. This time, we only need the slow match and a handful of gunpowder. That should be enough to set off the magazine, shouldn't it?
You don't even need the gunpowder. If the slow match touches any of the gunpowder that's in there, boom.
Right. So if we coil up the slow match inside something the size of a biscuit tin, I mean a like handspan type thing, and have that near the powder magazine, most of the slow match is on the inside of that. But once it burns out and then extends outward, Once it's burned up all the stuff that's inside the tin, then goes into the rest of it, then that should do it.
Yeah, you'd have to. It's not going to buy you a whole lot of time, and
Right.
you'd want to light it before you went in the magazine.
Right.
And that leaves you with the problem of how do you get back off the ship?
Run.
I mean,
I'm sure none of the 600 crew would notice.
Oh, but if I'm invisible and we've got a rat, oh, okay. Yeah, you wouldn't be a rat anymore.
Right.
We have our items on us in our rat form, so could we bring the slow match or whatever?
You could, but it's a question of would you be able to make your way out of the magazine and get off the ship before it blew up, given that there's 600 British sailors and Marines in between you and the exit?
I think that's what we need the reconnaissance for. That's what we need Artemis to go out and see if that's realistic, how long it would take to get to one of the matches and back off the ship and see if we can actually do this.
I mean, is there a way to blow a hole in? It's 8 inches of oak, rat. Damn it.
Yeah.
If we could blow a hole in the side and jump out, we could all try to swim for it.
I would ideally like to sneak in and sneak out with the group that I'd go with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the problem is going to be making your way off the ship as a human.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's an idea. How about if we target one of the ship, like the biggest ship that's in the middle of the flotilla, and the rats stay up, toward the front of the ship, to near the exits. Okay, I'll go in invisibly carrying the slow match bomb, the timer bomb. Go down to the magazine, set it, and then at that moment, in this coordinated thing, the rats turn back into people and start a ruckus, start a distraction, start a fight. But then once all 600 start to swarm you guys, you just jump overboard and leave, just flee. But that'll be enough to clear the path for me to get out of the powder magazine and escape.
Well, if you're still invisible, then you probably wouldn't have too much trouble. It's an unfamiliar face moving through the ship that's going to be a problem.
Okay, well, in that case, maybe I should just be the one to do this. Go in, plant the bomb invisibly, and then sneak back out while the slow match is burning. I mean, we'll only be able to do one ship that way.
Well, it would probably give us a lot of information one way or another just by having that single trial run.
Well, there's also Pet Know It.
Right.
He doesn't have
So that's 2 ships.
Right.
So in that case,
did I volunteer for anything while I was gone?
Well, I think we've narrowed it down to Artemis going in invisibly and you going in as a rat. Artemis will basically have a fused grenade that the engineers will make up for him, and you'll just blow up.
As usual.
Okay. So that being the case, then we can do 2 separate ships, right? If that's
right. And if you pick two that are further apart, it's quite possible that the explosions will damage adjacent ships as well.
Ooh, yeah. Let's try to do that.
That sounds good.
All right. So step 1, let's get Nubbins to shift Pet Know It into a rat. You are a splendid rat, sir.
Easy for me.
Squeak.
Boy.
All right, so you can easily sneak aboard via one of these longboats that's going back and forth. That would be a little bit trickier for Artemis, but that's possible for him too, or Artemis could swim out.
That might be a little more noticeable, right?
if I go out slowly, I mean, there's a lot of wash and chop and stuff. Go out slowly and then climb up the anchor chain?
There's an entry port. I mean, it's basically like steps in the side of the ship.
If he
Okay.
changed both of us, you'd be an invisible rat and you could sneak on the boat.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll re-roll it then for him to change both of you. Let me give him his concentration bonus.
Sorry,
And
Pet Noah
then
was clever but not fast.
It nets out to nothing.
It's very small. Oh my gosh.
Two splendid rats.
Here we go. Squeak.
All right, so Artemis, I need an invisibility roll at +2 because you have time to concentrate.
Visibility roll 2. There we go.
Good enough. You are an invisible rat.
All right.
All right. So since you're both rats, this is not challenging. You simply sneak aboard 2 of the longboats, make your way aboard the ship, and then as you at the appointed time. So basically, you have to wait a bit because Nubbins wants to give you enough time to make sure that you are at the magazine before. And of course, you're not familiar with the layout of the ship, so he's going to give you like 3 hours to run around before he releases the power so that you can sync up. So basically, as soon as he releases the power and turns you into humans again, that's going to be your cue to blow up the ships. So I would like stealth rolls from both of you. But they're going to be rat stealth rolls. So let me see if that's any different. Basically, to avoid the other rats.
Huh.
Oh, interesting.
Because the ship is quite thoroughly infested with them, and they're not necessarily friendly to outsiders. So I'm going to say
rats?
that. Yeah.
That's fine.
Interesting.
How long have you been
gonna...
in for?
So I'm going to say that you can use your existing stealth skill for this purpose. Okay, Artemis, you successfully evade the enemy rats.
I am the knight.
It helps that you're invisible, but not that much because they're looking for you by smell.
Yeah, I was thinking there's probably another skill.
It doesn't help so much against rats.
Yeah, Pet Noah has a couple of close encounters, but he manages to make it as well. And so 3 hours in, you suddenly you found your way to the magazine, and you are suddenly human again. In Pet Noah's case, you're in the magazine, and there's nobody in there right now because they don't like people hanging out in there in case anything weird happens. And in Artemis' case, you appear just outside the leather curtains that protect the magazine, where you can light your little grenade and toss it in there. So for Petanoit, I need a bomber roll at +2 because you are going to.
I'm thinking real hard.
Yeah, because you're going to explode.
Be the bomb.
Would you like to Benny that?
Benny the bomb.
You can just click the button in the chat to Benny it.
Ooh,
Nice.
much better.
That is a much more impressive explosion. Yes. So you explode, and the powder magazine explodes around you, and the whole ship goes up in a massive fireball.
Charming.
We'll come back to you.
Ruler of world.
Okay,
Oh, man.
Artemis, I would like an athletics roll to toss your grenade.
Okay. That's here we go. Oh, that's good. Any modifier on that?
No. All right. So you toss your grenade, and you now have 5 minutes to get off the ship. Conveniently, the crew is mostly distracted because one of the ships a little ways down in the anchorage just blew up in a massive fireball.
Nice. What a surprise it must have been.
So now I need another athletics roll for you to sprint off the ship before it explodes. That is good enough. So,
Nice.
so you run up to the lower gun deck and dive out a gun port. Now I need athletics rolls from both of you as you are now in the water. And for Pet Know It, your athletics roll is at -1 because you are dodging flaming debris. And this is your roll to swim to shore.
Don't fail.
There you go.
Nice.
But if Pet Noah does fail and he doesn't swim, he sinks to the bottom of the bay and just walks home, right?
Assuming he can pull off the shapeshift, yes. But you are successful, and you are able to. So 2 of the ships are completely destroyed. They're blown.
Nice.
They are blown to tiny little scraps. 4 more of the ships are damaged. 2 of them severely. 2 of them are completely dismasted by the force of the explosion, and 2 more catch on fire. And although the sailors are able to put the fire out, there is significant damage to the upper works. So this has severely damaged the fighting utility of these ships. And as a result, the smaller French fleet is able to fight their way upriver and eliminate this British force and so the British force basically retreats in the face of the French opposition. Without the artillery support, the Americans are able to hold the line and force the British back to the sea.
Hey.
Oh, nice.
Victory!
How unexpected.
Hey.
But
Hey, us. All right, I love it.
All right, and with that will be it for the game this week. You can follow Happy Monster Press on Facebook as Happy Monster Press, at our website, happymonsterpress.com, Twitter as Happy Monster PRS, or follow the podcast on YouTube, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, iTunes, or Google Play Music. The Happy MonsterCast is part of the Savage Worlds Media Network. This game references the Savage Worlds game system available from Pinnacle Entertainment Group at www.peginc.com. It is unofficial media content permitted under the Media Network Content Agreement. This content is not managed, approved, or endorsed by Pinnacle Entertainment Group. Certain portions of the materials used are the intellectual property of Pinnacle, and all rights are reserved. Savage Worlds, all related settings and unique characters, locations, and characters' logos and trademarks are copyrights of Pinnacle Entertainment Group. All other content is the intellectual property of Happy Monster Press. Background music is Ice Cold by Jason Shaw.
Oh, for sure.